And welcome to Stakelbeck on Terror. Well, he is a giant of Christian Zionism and the founder of America's largest pro-Israel group. Pastor John Hagee sat down with us recently for an exclusive interview to discuss the incredible growth of Christians United for Israel, CUFI, and the gathering threats against America and Israel. He also talked about his personal journey and how he became a leading defender of Israel and the Jewish people. So without further ado, here is my sit-down with Pastor John Hagee. Well, Pastor, we just completed the CUFI Summit 2013. I believe this was the 8th summit.
Yes.
Which is, talk about phenomenal growth. I've been at the CUFI summits from the beginning, and I really believe this may have been the best. And we're going to show highlights from the summit here on the show. Huge success, Pastor, huge turnout. You birthed this idea back in 2006.
Yes.
Now CUFI has 1 million members, the largest pro-Israel organization in the world, if I'm not mistaken,
yes.
in the least in America.
Yes.
Talk about the growth of CUFI, and when you started out, did you ever envision it getting this big and this successful? And really, I believe this anointed from the Lord.
We started, as you said, in 2006, February 2006. I called 400 of the leading evangelicals to my church. They were presidents of universities. They were owners and presidents of television stations and networks. These were the major pastors in America, the leading evangelists in the country, and asked them if they would be willing to create a unified voice in the support of the state of Israel. And the thing that provoked it was that Ahmadinejad was openly saying that he intended to wipe Israel off the map. We had been doing things for Israel for almost 30 years. And then here comes this dictator, this man who feels that he has a mandate from God to kill Christians and Jews. And I said, we need to put a voice together that speaks from Maine to California for Israel, and that we need in every major city to have a night to honor Israel, and that once each year we need to go to Washington, D.C., meet with our congressmen, meet with our senators, and tell them why we support Israel until we get through this crisis. Now, in 2006, things were calm, but the storm has begun. No, I did not envision this storm. We now have 1.3 million families who are part of Christians United for Israel, and we are able, within a 24-hour strike zone, to activate those people, either with emails or telephone calls to Washington, to stand for, to speak up for the Jewish people and the state of Israel.
Another great thing I see, Pastor, at CUFI events is that there is, number one, a large Jewish presence.
Yes.
And number two, the Israeli government has stood up and take notice. We have every year Prime Minister Netanyahu or the various Israeli prime ministers addressing CUFI audiences. Talk about the response you've gotten from the Jewish community and the Israeli government even.
When we started doing Nights to Honor Israel in 1981, there was skepticism among the Jewish people because they were concerned about my agenda. I had the largest evangelical church in town. But after they became fully persuaded that our intentions were pure and that we were trying to help them defend the state of Israel and to defend America and Israel against the tyranny developing in the world, they became totally supportive. Now the major Jewish organizations, major Jewish businessmen, the Prime Minister of Israel, the Cabinet of Israel, major senators and congressmen of the U.S. government who support Israel join us in things that are of common value to both Israel and to America. Israel is really in the front line of defense of the terrorism that's being developed in the world.
The canary in the coal mine.
Exactly so. They are the canary in the coal mine, and the issue that Israel faces today, we are going to face tomorrow. It's not something that's happening over there. It's something that is happening to us also. If terrorism prospers in Israel, it will prosper in America. Right. We must stop it there or it will be here, because I assure you, terrorist organizations are in this country right now, ready to go, waiting for the appointed hour. We must stand with Israel as they stand against the tyranny of Hezbollah, Hamas, Iran, the making of the bomb. There must never be a nuclear bomb in Iran. That is the single most important geopolitical issue facing America and the free world.
That's right, Pastor. Over here, we need to care about what happens over there, because as you have said, Israel is only the little Satan to the radical Islamist. America is the great Satan. And I've reported, Pastor, on how Israel is only a bump in the road even in their worldview. They're not going to, if they, God forbid, and we've read the book, we know it's not going to happen, but God forbid if they succeeded in their plans to wipe Israel off the map, they wouldn't just pack up their bags and go home if they were done with Israel. I believe America is the ultimate prize for these radical jihadists. And you talk about that Iranian nuclear weapon, and a lot of times people say, well, that's Israel's problem. Pastor, talk a little bit more about how Iran threatens America. And really, since the Iranian Revolution in 1979, we've had a bullseye on our back at the hands of this regime.
Stop and think about these things. One, that Iran right now has the missile capacity to attack and destroy the Saudi Arabian oil fields. If they do that, that will immediately crush the American economy. They want to develop the bomb first, but they have that ability now. They can clog up the Strait of Hormuz. Sure. They want to put this nuclear bomb together, and their method is debate, delay, and denial.
And this new president, Pastor, Ahmadinejad stepping down, but we have the new moderate, right, Rouhani?
Yeah. Can you believe that these religious fanatics who believe that the only way they can really get to heaven is die in a holy war trying to kill Christians or Jews, if you can believe that they will choose a moderate for anything, guess again.
But the West wants to believe it so badly.
Well, the press in the West wants to believe it and wants the rest of the world to believe it, because the president is saying that Al-Qaeda is on the ropes. They're fading out of existence. Right. Night before last, they only liberated 500 of their people from captivity. They are very, very, very prolific and powerful. The war against terrorism has only just begun.
Pastor, I agree. And you mentioned that jailbreak in Iraq, 500 Al-Qaeda operatives freed out of an Iraqi jail. We're in dangerous times, and we have to acknowledge the enemy. And Pastor, CUFI is doing a great job of educating the American people about the threats we're facing right now. The common enemies, Israel and America. Pastor, coming back, much more to come with Pastor John Hagee, founder of Christians United for Israel. Stay tuned. They're the original Islamic terrorist group. They spawned Al-Qaeda and Hamas. They're America's next great enemy, and they're in your backyard. If you want to understand the war on terror, you must first understand the Muslim Brotherhood. Pick up my new book, The Brotherhood, America's Next Great Enemy. Available at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold from coast to coast.
Today we're on a field trip to discover what inflation is doing to our paper money. In this hand is a $20 bill, and in this hand is a $20 US gold coin. They used to have the same buying power, but how much can they buy today? In this first basket is what my $20 bill buys: milk, bread, peanut butter, and jelly. And here's what one $20 gold coin will buy: 6 baskets full, worth nearly $2,000, almost 100 times more food, simply by owning gold dollars instead of paper dollars. History shows that the gold coins have been the best way to beat the rising cost of living. So class, the moral is that unless you want to live on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches in the future, you should turn some paper dollars into gold coins now. How and why is explained in a new book, The Great Debasement. Call the number below for a totally free copy. And that's the simple truth.
Help! If an emergency happened right now, you can have help at the push of a button with Medical Alert.
Remember when I took that fall, Mary?
Oh, yes, that was terrible.
Yes, it was. Help! And I thought, what if you hadn't been there? I ordered my Medical Alert the next day.
I can't describe how safe I feel now with my Medical Alert. You didn't know I was wearing it, did you?
Medical Alert is easy to install, waterproof, and covers you inside your home and out.
It helps me feel safe from fires, break-ins.
And of course, a Medical Alert. And if you don't have a home phone, don't worry. They have that covered.
There's always help at the push of a button. Don't wait till you need it.
Get Medical Alert for less than $1 a day. There are no long-term contracts. Order now and get your second button free. Call for your free brochure.
For your free Medical Alert system with second button free, call 800-575-8507.
And welcome back. We're talking to the one and only Pastor John Hagee, founder of Christians United for Israel, CUFI. Go to CUFI.org, that's CUFI.org. And if you're in San Antonio, please visit Cornerstone Church, where Pastor does an incredible job of talking about everything, preaching the gospel. So, Pastor, before the break, we were talking about the Iranian threat. Let's talk about one of Iran's proxies, Syria, which is embroiled right now in chaos, a civil war. You mentioned something very interesting during the break, how Syria has a large biological and chemical weapon stockpile. Yes. I think Americans may want to be concerned about that, right?
Very. Syria has the largest stockpile of chemical weapons in the world. Wow. And those chemical weapons have reason for every American to be concerned because, one, they can be hidden and moved around the world easily and quickly. Don't think that they're locked into Syria. They could be transported to America by terrorists in a briefcase. One drop of sarin gas on your skin will kill you. It's just that deadly. So these deadly weapons, Israel can't afford to let those weapons fall into the hands of their enemies because Israel is so close. But those weapons could very likely find themselves over here because the Iranians have said they're going to share their nuclear weapons and any weapons that they have with the terrorist organizations of the world. Yeah. So that's why America needs to understand that what happens over there can happen over here because the Iranians see that if they bring global chaos, it will produce their Messiah, and it is it is their hope and their dream to create this chaos, and they can certainly do it with a nuclear weapon or with chemical weapons.
Pastor, you make a great point because yes, we know these guys are radical Islamists, they're jihadists, they're terrorists, the Iranians, but they are driven by an ideology.
They are.
That ideology, the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, he's going to return, he's going to wipe out the Christians and Jews, he's going to wipe Israel off the map. Do you think our leadership in the West understands this ideology at all?
No, I do not. During the Cold War, we had mutually assured destruction. That meant that if Russia launched against us, we would assure them, we would launch against them. But the Russians wanted to live. Right. We wanted to live. So there was an absolute stalemate. People say, well, the Russians have had nuclear weapons for years and nothing has ever happened. Yeah. The difference between the Russians and the Iranians is the Iranians have a love affair with death. Right. They see death as their ticket to heaven. And they get there by fighting in a holy war against anyone who doesn't believe what they believe. So they are driven by a religious ideology to destroy everyone who does not believe what they believe, and they are anxious to use their weapons and anxious to be destroyed and will not hesitate. That's what the American people as a whole do not grasp.
Pastor, we could talk to you all day. We can do 5 shows with Pastor John Hagee, the one and only. So coming up much more, we're going to talk about how Pastor Hagee got into this pro-Israel movement and into the position where he is now. So much more coming up with Pastor Hagee. Don't move.
Attention sleep apnea patients. Are you tired of the expense and hassle of getting your CPAP and BiPAP supplies? Are you fed up with dealing with ill-fitting, leaking, or worn-out masks and straps? Are you worried about the effects that unsanitary tubes, cushions, and filters have on your health? If you said yes to any of these questions, Allied Medical Supply Network has the solution to your problems. You could qualify to have your supplies regularly delivered right to your door at little or no cost to you. That's right, no more inconvenience, no worn-out masks and straps, no more unsanitary equipment, just restful sleep. Call Allied Medical Supply Network today to determine if you may qualify to receive your fresh, brand-name supplies at little or no cost. Don't delay. Call us now to see if you are eligible to save money on regular delivery of your CPAP and BiPAP supplies. Call 1-800-815-9947. That's 1-800-815-9947. Or go to cpapsupplyhelpline.com.
Announcing an important breakthrough in healthcare that can benefit everyone. If you or anyone you love needs affordable health insurance, regardless of a pre-existing medical condition, call Quick Insurance 123 today and get the immediate relief you deserve. Quick Insurance 123 was created to provide affordable health insurance to all uninsured Americans, with or without pre-existing conditions. This is not a discount card. This is a real insurance program that lets you choose from many affordable health plans, with access to doctors, hospitals, emergency services, and more. So call the number on your screen now and get the health coverage you need, just for calling. As a special bonus, we'll send you a free prescription savings card that could save you up to 85% on your prescriptions. That's right, you could save up to 85% on your prescriptions, just for calling. Call Quick Insurance 123 to find out how you can get affordable health insurance and receive your free prescription savings card, just for calling. Don't wait. Getting a free quote is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Call today.
And welcome back. We're talking to Pastor John Hagee, founder of Christians United for Israel. Pastor, how did you get into all this? You know, I think your backstory in reading In Defense of Israel, which is another superb book by Pastor Hagee, I encourage everyone to pick up. I think your backstory growing up as a young guy in Texas was fascinating. Talk about the influence your father had in your life in helping to make you into a Zionist.
My father was a great Bible scholar. He was a prophecy scholar. We were sitting at the kitchen table in 1948. Believe it or not, we were listening to the radio because, boys and girls, there was no television. And we heard the announcer say, this news break from New York, the United Nations has just recognized the state of Israel. And my father looked at me and said, son, this is the most important day in the 20th century because it verifies, like nothing that you will ever experience personally, that the Word of God is absolutely true, because all of the Old Testament prophets prophesied that Israel would be brought from their Gentile graves and would be reborn again. He said, Isaiah said that Israel would be reborn in a day, and this has happened in a day. The clock has started ticking, and we're moving toward the coming of Messiah. He said the next thing that will happen is that Jerusalem must go back to be a part of Israel. And he said, and when that happens, we're getting close. Wow. I was an 8-year-old child.
But that never left you.
But it never left my mind. Yeah. And when Jerusalem went back to Israel, I was an adult. And he said, we're close.
Yeah.
We're close.
We are close.
And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah, and Christians out there, you think you shouldn't care about what happens in Israel, what happens with the Jewish people? Listen to what Pastor Hagee is saying. And that stayed with you, Pastor. And then you got to personally travel to Israel. And you had a very profound, I'd say life-altering experience at the Western Wall.
Very much.
Tell us about that.
In 1978, I went to Israel with my wife and just a handful of church members to Israel. And while I was walking in the city of Jerusalem, I felt the very presence of God in a way that I had never felt it in my life. And I'd been born and raised in the church. Then we went to the Western Wall, and while I was at the Western Wall praying, there was a definite supernatural invasion of my heart, soul, mind, and body. And as I was praying, I felt the Lord say to me, I want you to do everything in your power to bring Christians and Jews together. I looked over my left shoulder, and there was an Orthodox Jew with a prayer shawl. I didn't know what a prayer shawl was. Rocking back and forth, kissing the Bible with tears dripping off his cheeks. And I saw how devout he was in his faith. And the Lord said to me, that man is your spiritual brother, but he's afraid of you, and you know absolutely nothing about him. So I went back to the wall and was going through my prayer list. And, you know, sometimes when you start talking to God, he talks back and just interrupts your whole life. And so I just put it in the wall and left. And went and told my wife, I said, this is just what I feel the Lord has said to me. And she said, how in heaven's name do you think you could do anything to bring Christians and Jews together? We've been fighting for 2,000 years. And I said, I don't know, but I think I'm supposed to try. We went to the Harp of David. I bought several $100 worth of books. I have over 5,000 books in my library. I've read them all. It was about the history of Israel that I had never studied in seminary, specifically dealing with the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, the Holocaust, the theological roots of those.
An ugly history.
And it dawned on me the abuse of people who call themselves Christians toward the Jewish people, and why the Jewish people are so terrified of Christians to start with. And so when Menachem Begin in 1981 had the IDF to blow up the nuclear reactor in Iraq, the American press was vitriolic against Israel and calling it gunboat diplomacy and saying very unkind things about Israel. And I said to my wife, we need to have a night to honor Israel. We're going to gather all of the churches together in San Antonio. We're going to get our choir and put them on the stage. We're going to take our television cameras. I'll make a video of this. I'll send this to every evangelical pastor I know and get this started across the nation. Well, we had a press conference saying we were going to have this night to honor Israel, and we started getting death threats immediately to the church. And we had the event, and while we were at the event, there was a bomb threat on the building. We finished the event. The Christian people ran out of the building. The Jewish people flipped their hands as if to say, as if I would have said, kosher hot dogs are available for those of you who'd like to spend the rest of the night. And it dawned on me they were accustomed to being threatened, and this was a novel experience for Christians. So I said, we're going to keep doing it. I intended to do a night to honor Israel one time, tie the bow on it, and that's the end of it. But when they started getting all of this static, they did shoot the windows out of my car in front of my house. Just their way of saying, we know where you live and we're willing. But we kept on having a night to honor Israel year after year. It grew, got larger, spread to other churches, and then in 2006 we started a night to, we started the Christians United for Israel. It has exploded in a dimension we never thought would ever be possible. And every one of you who are watching this telecast, who want to be a supporter of Israel, who want to stand with us in defense of Israel for issues that are relevant to America's survival and Israel's survival, become a part of Christians United for Israel. Get on our email so that you can interact with your senator or your congressman so that Israel can hear the voice of Christians actively standing up and defending them. Read Isaiah, the 62nd chapter, verse 1, that says, for Israel's sake, I will not be silent. We need your help.
Yeah, and Pastor, this is, so people understand, this is really, I'd say it's a revolutionary movement. This is unprecedented, as you said, in the past 2,000 years, Christians and Jews coming together who share a love, a reverence, a fear of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob coming together. And I can tell you, I've been in CUFI events now for 7 years, and the Spirit of God is in the room.
Amen.
Clearly, Pastor, the Spirit of God.
This is something that only God could do.
Yeah.
Only God could do this.
And thank God He's doing it through you, using you to make this come to fruition, Pastor, and be a true watchman on the wall. We're going to wrap up with Pastor John Hagee. Stay tuned.
When you're driving along and your cell phone rings, do your eyes instantly go off the road? Then you need to get a grip. Hi, David Jones here with the new GripGo, the most versatile hands-free mount that will instantly grip any phone for safe driving. Just attach the suction cup to your windshield or dash, and GripGo grabs your phone ultra fast. That it peels right off. And don't worry, there's no sticky residue left behind. The 360-degree pivoting mount allows you to always get the perfect viewing angle.
It's even strong enough to grab and hold this expensive smartphone out the window. Yet it comes right off with ease. That's the advantage of GripGo.
You can get the amazing GripGo with dashboard mount for only $14.95. We'll send you a second kit free. Just pay separate processing and handling. Get 2 complete GripGo systems for just $14.95.
To order GripGo for $14.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-709-5259 or order online at getgripgo.com.
Jim is 38, mortgage, married, 3 great kids. He wants to protect his family with a $500,000 term life insurance policy. What do you think it'll cost him? $100 a month? 60? 40? Actually, none of the above. Jim can get a $500,000 policy from a highly rated insurer for under $19 a month. His secret? SelectQuote. SelectQuote is impartial. They'll comparison and shop the pick of insurance companies like these to give you a choice of your best prices. SelectQuote has great savings on term life for women, too. Jim's wife, Deidre, can get a $500,000 policy for under $16 a month. SelectQuote has helped make term life insurance affordable for hundreds of thousands of people since 1985. How about you? Just call this number or go to SelectQuote.com. SelectQuote. We shop, you save.
And welcome back. We're wrapping up with Pastor John Hagee. Pastor, it's been such a blessing to have you here. And I want to come on down to San Antonio sometime, do it on the ranch.
Love to have you.
Yeah.
Love to have you.
But this has been great. I want to ask you before we go, you have so many books I encourage everyone to pick up. The Power of the Prophetic Blessing, In Defense of Israel. Among your 36 books, your new book, The 4 Blood Moons, comes out October 2013. Pastor, tell us real quick what it's all about.
The 4 Blood Moons is a prophetic presentation of the future. There have only been 4 blood moons in the history of the world that have appeared in the past 500 years. 4 blood moons in 1492 when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. 4 blood moons in 1948 when Israel became a state. 4 blood moons in 1967 when Jerusalem became a part of Israel. 4 blood moons are going to happen beginning April of 2014, and they're going to go to September 15th to 2015. So in that span of time, if history and prophecy repeats itself, something historical is going to change the dynamic of the world when these 4 blood moons begin to shine, beginning April 2014, 2015. You want to read 4 blood moons this year.
Pastor John Hagee, thank you so much for joining us. It was a blessing.
You, sir.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you.
And until next week, from Stakelbeck on Terror, God bless, and remember, never hold your peace.